wow, it was an entertaining game. By the way, that was the final score. The referees did all they freaking could. The Indiana Fever pull it out by 1 point. It was an ugly, ugly game to get this game in the favor and give. I mean, if Kelsey Plum hadn't screwed the pooch and that ball rolled out, I don't know how this game turns out.
Did the refs almost steal this win from the Fever? With Indiana up by 1, the final seconds turned into complete chaos, mysterious clock resets, multiple inbound do-overs, and a controversial 0.1 second inbound that sent fans into outrage online. We're breaking down every detail of how those strange decisions almost flipped the outcome and why people are calling it one of the most questionable endings of the WNBA season. But it's not just about this game.
Ooh, I got to admit, that was an entertaining game. The fourth quarter was very, very entertaining. They needed this win. They were trying to avoid being swept by the Sparks, and they got it done.
What if this is part of a bigger problem across the league? Stay tuned. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. What actually went down in those last few seconds that had everybody furious? Because on the surface, Indiana had already done the hard part. The Sparks were trailing by 1, Boston had already stuffed a critical possession inside, and Kelsey Mitchell had gotten herself to the line to put the Fever in control.
Odyssey Sims, 10 of 20 in 33 minutes, 21.6 boards. Angel Reese, looking at you, double-double and a victory. Yeah, see how that actually works. 22 and 11. Leah Boston, 11 of 18. She had a double-double, 3 assists. You're not winning this game without her.
At that point, any normal game ends with free throws and maybe a last-second heave. But this one turned into something completely different. Instead of winding down cleanly, the clock suddenly became the main storyline. First, it showed 0.6 seconds after a defensive stop, but then, out of nowhere, it got changed to 0.1. That difference might sound small, but in basketball, it's basically the line between getting a final tip attempt and having no chance at all. Fans watching live were already confused, but what made it even worse was the way the officials handled it. They didn't just clarify the time once. They blew the whistle multiple times, walked over to the scorer's table, huddled up, and somehow kept finding reasons to hand LA another inbound opportunity.
But one could argue maybe they shouldn't have been in that spot, right?
So a reset timeout taken here by LA with 1/10 of a second left.
Nonsensical benchings, rotations. It doesn't make any sense.
So imagine being on the floor as a player. You're celebrating a stop 1 second, then you're being told to get back in position because the Sparks are inbounding again. It wasn't just once, it was a sequence of resets, and Indiana looked like they had it sealed more than once before the refs interrupted the momentum. The crowd in the arena didn't even know how to react. You could see players shrugging their shoulders on the broadcast because no one understood why Los Angeles was getting all these do-overs. The wildest moment came when the clock flipped to 0.1 seconds. At that exact point, the whistle stopped the play again, and suddenly LA was given this gift inbound as if the game wasn't basically over. At 0.1, there's just enough time for an alley-oop style tip, and that's all the Sparks needed to potentially pull off a miracle. People online instantly lit up with outrage. The phrase 0.1 inbound started trending, and not in a fun way. Clips of the sequence were being shared with captions accusing the refs of not knowing the rules, or worse, straight up fixing the game. Debates broke out almost instantly. Some people called it incompetence, a crew simply not in sync with the clock operator. Others said it felt far more suspicious, pointing out that these extra inbound chances all tilted in favor of Los Angeles. It wasn't just Fever fans either. Neutral fans jumped in because moments like this drag down the credibility of the entire league. And what makes it sting more, is that this isn't the first time officiating has been criticized this season. Earlier games involving New York and Dallas had controversial late whistles. Same goes for a contest in Phoenix where reviews stretched into forever and completely disrupted the ending rhythm. This added fuel to the narrative that WNBA officiating has a consistency problem, and this Indiana-LA finish became the latest evidence. Here's the thing, though. Even with all this madness, certain players held strong and refused to let it shake them.
And look, that was a big shot because Lexi and Natasha Howard tonight combined for 3 for 15 from the field. The Indiana Fever won this game, and the Sparks had 22 turnovers. It took 22 turnovers. I mean, unbelievable. Odyssey Sims tonight had some real clutch shots to win this game. 23 points for the Fever off those turnovers.
Odyssey Sims, of all people, showed veteran calm by scoring key buckets earlier that kept the Sparks alive. So even when the situation looked shady, Indiana still had to deal with her production. On the other side, Aaliyah Boston once again anchored down defensively. Her presence on the boards and her positioning made sure none of those weird, last-second inbound tricks actually turned into points. Without her strength inside, one of those broken plays could have snuck in and flipped the outcome. That's what makes this win so much bigger than just a number in the column. The Fever didn't simply outplay another team. They survived controversial timekeeping, questionable whistles, and constant pressure situations where they had barely any control. And by doing that, they held on to momentum in the playoff race when they easily could have walked away frustrated and defeated.
Pass out. Boom. Knocked it down. That was a massive, massive clutch shot. They needed that. This was when the big comeback was on. 9 minutes left. Lexi Hull, bruises and all, hit a massive three. This was Sims right here. 56 seconds left. Let's check it out.
The lead back up to 3.
She hits this big three.
What's even more interesting is how this sets the stage for Caitlin Clark's return. Think about it. If Indiana can claw through all this chaos without her, imagine what happens when she's back running the floor in these moments. Her presence completely changes how those final possessions play out. Whether it's drawing defensive attention, knocking down free throws, or setting up Boston for easy looks inside. The takeaway from this ending is crystal clear. The Fever didn't just beat the Sparks, they beat the broken clock, the strange officiating, and the emotional swings all at the same time. And with Clark stepping back in soon, the way Indiana handles these tense finishes could look very different. The Fever showed something bigger than just a regular season win. They proved they could handle chaos and still find a way to close. Even when calls looked against them and the clock was a mess, they stayed locked in and didn't fold. That kind of resilience matters when the stakes get higher. But here's the real question. When Caitlin Clark returns, will the league finally take a hard look at officiating? Fans keep asking for fairness, and moments like this highlight why. Indiana's battle with LA wasn't just basketball, it was about proving they can rise above controversy.